Hello, my name's Wayne. Here we are at Legal & General's head office in Coleman Street in London. I'm here with Adrian and Hazel today. We're going to be talking about consumer duty, one of the biggest opportunities we've had in the last 10 to 15 years in our industry, particularly protection. So I'm so excited to have them with us to talk about this ongoing opportunity going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. So as Wayne said, I'm Hazel. I'm one of the market development team at Legal & General, and as Wayne said, it's a really exciting opportunity for advisors to think about how they can use this opportunity to grow their business. And who better to chat that through with today than Adrian Benjamin. So Adrian, tell us a bit about you.
So thank you, Wayne and Hazel, for inviting me. I'm very honoured to be here. I've been in protection for about 2 years now. Previously, before that, I've been doing banking consulting on some compliance projects as well. So I'm very passionate and happy to be here to spread this to not only advisors, but to the wider market and consumers as well.
Well, thank you for coming. We're really looking forward to hearing more about your thoughts on it. Wayne, you've been doing a huge amount of work in Legal & General on the consumer duty, and you found out an awful lot about what the rules now mean. If you were to summarise to an advisor what it means to them, what would you say to them?
Yeah, well, the consumer duty is all about the customer, Hazel. It's putting the customer at the centre of what we do, but it's TCF on steroids. Advisors going forward from the 31st of July next year, they're going to have to act to ensure that customers have good outcomes. And there's a whole host of elements that are underneath that, but that's mainly the North Star as I see it. Everything that we should be aiming for in order to make sure we're showing that we're putting the customer at the centre of what we do. That's simply it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where protection is so important, isn't it? Because what we found from our latest deadline to breadline research was that only 39% of the UK's population have at least one protection product, which, when I read that's quite scary to think the majority of the UK don't have enough. So Adrian, as a protection advisor, when I told you that before we started the podcast, you squirmed. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, 39% is not too great, but I think, like Wayne said before, I think with the consumer duty coming in place, I think it's going to be a positive thing where we're working together. So it's not, mortgage advisors, protection advisors, independent financial advisors separate. We can all come together, really. And, if you're too busy or not too sure on a certain element, you can refer it to someone else as well. I think that's a positive thing. So that 39% hopefully will keep increasing in years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we were chatting before the podcast, you mentioned about consumer understanding. So as an advisor, how do you make sure that a consumer actually understands what you're talking about?
Well, in the second meeting, I'll always go back to them and say, do you fully understand? Is there any bits you're not too sure of? And I'll just obviously go through all the benefits of the product and why they need it. So before I go to compliance, I always make sure the client fully understands it and they're happy with the price of it as well. But yeah, I always reiterate that to the client that they understand it.
I guess another bit of the consumer duty is making sure that consumer can achieve their financial objectives. So you mentioned collaboration with different areas such as mortgages, financial planning. How do you do that well at the moment?
I use social media quite a lot. I do a lot of networking as well. I think social media is the biggest thing because everyone consumes information media at different times. The beauty for me is social media is 24/7. So, like I said to you before, I had a client that's messaged me at 3 a.m. I was up at 3 a.m. We've had a conversation, we had the meeting the next day. That's the power of social media. And I think, getting people at different demographics as well. People absorb information different ways. So, we mentioned TikTok before. It might look a bit off on LinkedIn, but that's the future. And if someone can, take life insurance out from someone doing a dance, then fair play. Like we need more of it. And I also think social media, you're making something that is perceived as boring and not interesting into actually fun and interesting. And that's what I think not only myself but other advisors in the industry are doing a really good job at doing. And like I said, it's only going to get bigger and better, really.
I agree. I love TikTok.
It's amazing, isn't it? We're doing a dance together.
Potentially.
If we can persuade you.
Hazel and I have warmed up.
You guys can do it and we'll be there.
You mentioned awareness, and ensuring that customers have got that and that understanding piece. One of the big elements of consumer duty is helping advisors helping customers to avoid that foreseeable harm, if you like. And I suppose customers not having enough protection is one of those elements. So what do you think? What's your thoughts on that?
With your awareness piece, again, it's like before people go into a retail bank to see a mortgage advisor or independent financial advisor, that's not there anymore. So hopping back to social media, that's why it's so important. People absorb things in different ways. So if someone does a song or a dance and someone's going to take out protection, that's great. If someone wants a little bit more detail and there's a webinar or seminar, that's also great too. So I think social media, you're going to hit different things for people and also different demographics. So if I post something on LinkedIn, that can be on Instagram. People on Instagram are in maybe different industries and different spaces of people on LinkedIn. And then I've got my WhatsApp. So they're three completely different forms of social media, but I'm hitting different demographics all the time. And also I get people sharing stuff. So when I get clients coming to me, I have no idea where they come from. It could come from a WhatsApp status. It could come from a Facebook story. Like, I have no idea. But the point is, my message is going out 24/7, like every day. That's the main thing, really.
Well, that sounds amazing. And when you're having conversations with your customers, how do you find, talk about the importance of life cover, critical illness, all that overall protection? How do you find those conversations on the back of the social media interaction?
I think it's a lot easier off the back of social media because, the cliche thing of no like trust. If they've seen me every day on the feed, hopefully they like me. And you got to trust someone to take that the policies out as well. That's really important. And I think when clients speak to me, it feels like they know me already. It's not the other way around where, traditionally you might have cold called someone, it might be the wrong time, even though you're trying to help them, they may not see that. But social media, it's in the client's time. So again, if someone's going to message me 3 in the morning, I respond to that. He was shocked, but I was up anyway.
Is that because you were watching the basketball?
I was watching, yeah. That was
You don't set an alarm every time someone contacts you.
and I think we're in the age of, consumers are a lot more switched on. They will research more because of, the internet, and it's on their terms, right? Not everyone can have a mortgage or protection call in their 9 to 5. It might be 8 p.m. for them. And that's again the beauty of social media, where they can see something like it and then we'll switch in their diary as well.
So what's their level of knowledge then? If you find that their consumers are doing research before they come in to see you, what would you say if they're coming in for a protection product, their level of knowledge is on that at the moment?
Good question. So I've never had a client do any research. So that's 0. But again, obviously, when I speak to them, I'm educating them on it. Obviously, everyone needs insurance anyway. It's just trying to understand the client's needs. I think that's the big thing. We all know everyone needs it, but everyone's reason could be completely different. With protection, it's mainly a reactionary product, where I always say, unless something's happened to you personally or someone you like and love, you're not necessarily going to get it. So I had a client ring me last week, said to him, I've been doing this for 8 years, why are you ringing me now? My best friend passed away last week. So obviously it's not great, but I'm the first person he thinks of because of all the social media beforehand. It's not, well, where do I go and do I need to go online and Google it? Like, he knows I'm there, but it takes clients some time. So, I have a social media room on Clubhouse where I talk about finance and property. And I talk about the importance of having a mortgage and protecting that. I've had a client come to me 6 months after that room, but it wasn't the right time for her then. It's now. And I think, again, with social media, it's easier for the client when it's appropriate for them than us going direct to them and maybe being a bit strong with it.
So do you think going forward then, as part of the consumer duty and making sure that we are doing right by clients, that having a social media presence actually helps you in your appointments ensure that client understands?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I'm pretty sure, I don't know what the percentage are, but before someone will ring me, I'm pretty sure they've done a Instagram, Facebook, they've done their due diligence check, and that's what we do naturally as consumers anyway. Because of the internet, it's there to research. So I think it can only help, to be honest.
And what about, obviously you're talking a lot about, you get a lot of clients from social media, from your own promotion, but a massive part of consumer duty is actually getting referrals. If you do have mortgage advisors, if you do have IFAs that don't maybe have the time, or it's not their specialism, what would you like to see from them if they're sending a referral into you? What do you need?
I think it's a good thing, the referral as well. I think for me, when I work with users, it needs to be a joined up approach. It's not at the end, here's Adrian to do the protection. It should be at the beginning. The more the client is aware of protection, and obviously me trying to help, the better it's going to be as well. So I feel if you are going to collaborate with someone, doesn't matter what it is, make sure it's as early in the process as possible.
I would totally agree. Like my background is as a mortgage advisor, and I've done my financial plan exams as well. And I'll admit, when I first joined the industry, I found selling protection really hard. Like, and I've got personal experience, so the passion was there, but my process probably wasn't. And that's exactly the mistake I made when I first joined, is I parked it right to the end. So they got their mortgage. Why would they want to come back in and see me? So absolutely what you say is right. I then, through time, learning and adapting, I'd say any advisor should constantly be learning and adapting. I moved that conversation right to the very start and almost made it like a package. Like, actually, this is what you're coming in to see me for. And without your income always being there, or without a pair if something was wrong, all the advice I'm giving you today is worth nothing, because you won't have that mortgage. And I think you're totally right when you say that start of the relationship, start of the appointment, the sooner you can introduce that concept, the easier it is. What do you find with that, Wayne? You've got an experience of banking and things as well.
Yeah, definitely right. I think if you're starting as early as possible in the journey in terms of making sure the customer is aware of the importance, and really it goes back to the importance, who doesn't think and wake up in the morning and think, either consciously or subconsciously, that their family is probably the most important thing to them? But they often don't make the link in terms of that future financial security. So as an advisor, as a person who creates that awareness on social media, that is so important. And the way you're doing it now in terms of getting out there and doing all these different types of content, I think is absolutely amazing, because we're not having to rely on those usual channels that we had, in days gone by. And that wider social purpose of it, I don't think can be really underestimated. And then you mentioned the element of trust earlier on, didn't you? Because by the time that they've come to sit in front of you, call whatever it might be, they already trust you, because they probably know about how many times you've been watching basketball. And they probably see your layup shot. Yeah. They've probably seen you could dunk it. I can't, I'm a bit short.
Can you score a 3-point? Yeah.
I love the dress.
I can doubles dribble, that's about it.
But I think your point is right. Like, they will research before they probably speak to me. So I've updated my Instagram now, where I've got highlights at the top. So all the information videos I do, it's all in one place. So now you can go in and learn like as much you can about protection. Like, what is a trust? How does that work? What is critical illness cover? What is family income benefit? Like, everything is in one space for them. So by the time they get to the call, they have not an awareness, they have an understanding of what it is. It's more now a case of how does that fit in with you and your budget.
That's really good. And in terms of, we mentioned it earlier around collaboration, people, those that do maybe full financial planning or other areas financial planning, and then they refer to others. If you link it into the sort of the end game, really, in terms of getting the policy on the risk, so providers and stuff, how important is it that providers collaborate with advisors like yourself in terms of, making sure that we actually put the consumer duty at the centre of what we're doing?
I think it's really important, like you said before. So not the brands as well, the providers working with advisors like myself to try and get the message across, because my social media feed might be completely different to Legal in General, but like I said before, you're communicating to so many different demographics. So your whole LinkedIn profile and Hazel's and mine, they're all going to be different, but we all have the same message. And like you said, it's amazing that the people that will see something, they might not like or comment on the post, but it'll be a direct message or it's a phone call. But because social media, again, it's awareness, it's not trying to sell anyone anything, it's making people aware of these things. And then the cliche thing is 7 touch points. Now I'm going to say it's 14, because everyone is so busy and there's so many distractions. Like, it's probably even harder to get someone's attention now. Like, social media is very crowded. Before LinkedIn was was all posts, then videos came in, and then it's a bit weird, and now it's basically TikTok. Yeah. It's more difficult to get people's attention, but if you're collaborating together, it's only going to be positive.
That's where we want to go with this, isn't it? It's like, because actually we find you guys are the experts on what you do. Like, absolutely, we're the provider. We do a lot of research. We develop our products, etc. But you're the one speaking to consumers day in, day out, and that's how we felt you were a great person to come on and share these tips, wasn't it, Wayne? Like, when we were discussing this, we thought, seen you do your videos, but let's see if we can get
Adrian.
Yeah. And going back to what you mentioned on trust, because I did see, Adrian, on LinkedIn, you did a consumer education video on trusts and why they're important. And I think that really does link in with consumer duty and doing the right thing. I mean, I saw a stat, we host webinars on trusts. We've got a new one just launched to help advisors understand them. And as a part of the research for that webinar, we found within our own client bank, only 1 in 10 legal and general customers actually have their protection policies in trust. So how do you do well with that in your own appointments?
I make sure my clients have the interest.
Yeah.
Like, I want my records to be 100%.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of the process, because it's optional, but then why are 90% of people not doing it? You know, I'm doing a lot more business cases where I'm doing relevant life.
It
has to be in trust beforehand. So why, if I'm a limited company director, do I have to put it in trust? If I'm a consumer, it's optional, right? And that's why with 90%, that's huge. And with that video, I explained about the different nil rate bands. And the reason why I started doing videos was because I've been in finance for over 10 years. So I've done investment banking in New York, I've done corporate banking, I've done risk, I've done retail banking, I've done consultancy, I've done pretty much everything. And I came into insurance, and when I was studying for my CMAT qualification, I was thinking, oh my God, I didn't know any of this stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know what decreasing term was. I didn't know what kick was. And I'm like, if I don't know this, no, like the general public definitely not going to know it. So that's why I've done these different things. Like I'll do a video like, what is waiver premium? Why is that important? Because I didn't know that until I was in the industry. And that's why I think video is so important. And, you know, people learn in different ways. Like obviously this is going to be a podcast, but then, you know, a lot of people like to watch YouTube and videos. That's how they absorb things now. It can't just be like a static post, but that's why you should also have different forms of communication as well, even though it's the same message, you're doing it in different ways.
And do you have, when you're explaining these things, obviously you've got your videos you show clients, but in an appointment when you're explaining why you should put something in trust, what's your main go-to to share that with a client, make sure they understand it?
When I explain the trust, it's more of, you know, the money's going to the correct people. And also, you know, probate is a very long process.
Yeah.
If anyone's gone through it, it's awful. And, you know, you still have bills to pay. And by having that, I think the trust part is important. I tell my clients, like, whoever you're putting as a trustee, the people that are in control of the money, and the beneficiary, the people that are entitled to the money, have that conversation with them, like, now.
Yeah.
And it may be the 90% is they don't want to have that conversation. And it could be a cultural thing where some cultures, if you speak about death, it means like you're trying to bring it on. So that's why they just stop it, right? But I'm trying to make people aware that you can have that conversation as a reason. And also, don't just have your policy in your stock drawer. I've made sure with my policies, the people that are on it have got it by email. We've spoken about it. My wishes are you do X, Y, Z. Obviously, if I'm not here, they can do what they want. But, you know, that's what I'd like you to do. So I always tell parents, if you're having your partner and your children on the trust, when they're at the right age, have the conversation.
Absolutely, because the family know as well.
Yeah.
And it's, that understanding is 100% there, isn't it? If you get their family involved, then I guess that's more business for you later on potentially as well. If you're doing it for them and then their family are aware of what you can do and the great service you've provided, you're creating a trustworthy brand, aren't you?
Yeah, but there's so many elements to financial advice. So even with the mortgage, right? When you remortgage, you've got your documents. Like why should the life insurance policy should be there as well, with the will.
Yeah.
Like those three things should always be there, and they need to be reviewed. So when I speak to clients, like yes, hopefully this is for forever and we don't need to change it, but things might change, right? You might have another child, like you might have another business, you might buy another property. That means your insurance isn't fit for purpose. So it's pretty much 99% of all the clients that I've got protection, and we go through it. It's not adequate for what they want at the minute, so you always need to refresh it, even though it should be forever.
That's brilliant. Thank you for sharing. I mean, I particularly like the way that you're thinking of what the journey path through life's going to be, and some of the trials and tribulations that will come out about people being aware of it, the family. I think that in terms of consumer duty, one of the elements is that it will be coming in is that what I would call the show me test. So advisors evidencing that they put customers at the centre of what they do, they act to obviously make sure they've got those good outcomes for customers. The trust element, well, what a better way to evidence the fact that you put customers at the centre of what you do. You look to act to avoid that foreseeable harm, because the money's going to go to the right place at the right time and all that type of thing, and the right people.
So with that point on trust, I had a client last week. He's got 4 children, 26, 24, I think 18 and 16. I said to him, like, you're going to have the conversation at some point with them. he's been trying to put it off, and I was like, you're going to have to do it, and it's going to be, might be uncomfortable, but once you've done it, like you've done it, like same thing with the will, people keep putting it off. They don't think about it, but once it's done, hopefully you don't have to change it again. But it's starting that. It's going to be a process. Even when I had mine, my sister kept on crying. Like, I'm not, obviously I don't want to die, but if I do, you get all my stuff. That's great, but I'm not going to give you any money. But if I'm not here, you've got my flat, you've got my watches and stuff. So those conversations are going to take time. It's not necessarily overnight. So the earlier that the clients do that with the family, the better it is. I get clients saying the policies are too expensive as well, which is fine. But similar to buying a property, some parents will give their children a deposit. So I'm just saying, if this is a multi-generational product, why isn't everyone involved in it? So it could be the case of the parent is paying £100 a month, and then people, the trustees, might give them £25 each back. But the children doing that, the beneficiaries and trustees doing that, it means they're involved in the product, they understand it. So I think that's really important as well.
A lot of advisors to think about and take away, and lots of ways that they could really use the consumer duty to think about their skills, and as we said at the very start, try and grow that client base and use this as an opportunity. So I guess to summarise, what's your key tip that you give? Let's each give one. So Adrian, you go first. What would be your key tip to make sure you're doing the right thing after this consumer duty?
So I would say to people who aren't doing protection, so maybe mortgage advisors or independent financial advisors who are very busy, to collaborate. It's very difficult to do all three things at once, and I would say partner with an expert. So if anyone wants to partner with me, it's fine. I'm on social media, I'm not hard to find. And I think, having that expert advice, so you've got the expert mortgage advisor, protection advisor, IFA, and then we've got wills and trusts as well. Like, all four of them are completely different, but that is an integral part of, for the family as well, and making sure people keep the properties and keep the wealth in the family. So for me, it's definitely collaborate.
I guess because without that income or without that wealth, none of it happens, does it? So that's where you can definitely step in. For me, I'd probably say it's using kind of sales aids, marketing, maybe tying in with that social media a bit. I mean, we've got our risk reality calculators, our budget planners, and I think being able to utilise them really brings it to life for a customer, like visually, but also when you're marketing our social media pages. We've got animations, you can plagiarise them, and I think what we find is advisors that can utilise those are quite successful in terms of getting client trust and being able to document what they do. Have you used them at all, or what's your opinion on them?
I think the sales aids that Legal Journal have are really good. I've been on the webinars as well to make sure that I'm upskilling all the time. Products change, so I would say to any advisor, always have your CPD and be on top of it. It has been helpful.
Oh, well, I saw your name pop up on one of the webinars I did not long ago, Adrian. So thank you for attending. I hope you found it okay. What about you, Wayne? What's your takeaway? What would you
For me, it's really been about, and I say this a lot when talking to advisors, give a bit of yourself, and you give more than just a bit of yourself in your use of social media. And that really helps with, I suppose, customers knowing more about you, that trust and that rapport. So I suppose when you start talking to them, whether it's on the phone or whatever, maybe face to face, that they've got that ability to really sort of have that common ground with you. And I suppose then when you're having those conversations around the what ifs, what might happen with regards to their families and their financial future, it's a lot easier, because we do find a lot of advisors out there in the past, and I suppose we've all been there, in that if you have the conversation and they don't build the trust, and then shoehorn, if you like, protection late on in the process, what I like to talk about as well is the shutters go up. And straight away, it's a bit like when I used to work at the bank back in the day, and you detest the shutters at the end of each day. That's exactly what happens with the customer. Yeah. The next thing you know, they don't want to talk about the protection because they're not quite appreciating the importance and the purpose of it being there. So that would be the key one for me. And it links really in with the duty, acting to prevent that foreseeable harm, ensuring the good outcomes, and following that North Star that I mentioned at the beginning of this particular session.
So I guess in summary then, if we think about all the legislation, all the wording in that consumer duty, actually build trust, be yourself, collaborate and refer if you need to, and make use of sales aids for your documentation. And really doing those three things will hopefully help advisors and help our industry do even better for our clients going forward. massive thank you to Adrian for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you've given us so much insight and loads of top tips. Hopefully anyone listening has found that really useful, and hopefully it's just given you some ideas on how consumer duty can be an opportunity to try new things rather than a new bit of legislation that's a must do. Hopefully you've come away with some food for thought. But Wayne, any closing words from you?
No, just to remember, follow that North Star. It really is an opportunity. It is something that advisors out there are already doing. It's just a time to evidence and show exactly that we're walking the walk. And Adrian has really been part and parcel of showing us how he does that through social media and just the way he actually advises all his clients on a day-to-day basis. So thank you, Adrian. That was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We've loved it. Thank you.